Ms. Turd, you just testified that this case has been very hard for you. So let's talk about that and why.
All right.
Your lies have been exposed to the world multiple times, right?
I haven't lied about anything I've been here to say.
You sat here and told this jury that the events in Hicksville started with Mr. Depp getting really upset about a woman leaning on you. Is that correct?
Yes, that's effectively what happened, yeah.
You testified that he actually grabbed that woman's wrist and twisted it, right?
And told her that he could effectively break her wrist by saying he knew how many pounds of pressure, or asking her how many pounds of pressure it took to break a human wrist.
But your own witness, your former best friend, Rocky Pennington, she didn't corroborate that, did she?
I'm not quite sure what part of that night she saw. There were a lot of people there.
She didn't testify that Mr. Depp grabbed anyone's wrist in Hicksville.
Again, I don't know what Rocky saw. There were a lot of people there that night.
It does not take a very intelligent man to see that there are so many inconsistencies in what this woman had testified about, especially when you consider the fact that the witnesses are definitely invalidating her claims.
You testified that once you brought Mr. Depp back to your trailer, he trashed it, correct?
That is correct.
And the manager of the Hicksville trailer park was furious that Johnny had wrecked the whole thing. Do you remember that testimony?
That's correct.
Well, we heard from that manager of the Hicksville trailer park, Morgan Knight, on Monday, didn't we?
I'm not quite sure who that guy was or if he had any involvement in this. I know a lot of people have come out of the woodwork to be involved.
So you're accusing Mr. Knight of testifying and committing perjury?
I'm not accusing anyone. I just don't recognize that man.
You heard Mr. Knight testify that it was actually you who was upset with Mr. Depp spending time away from him. Isn't that correct?
How would he know? He wasn't there.
You heard Mr. Knight testify that it was actually you who was yelling at Mr. Depp.
Again, I've heard a lot of people say a lot of things to be involved in the Johnny Depp show, but he wasn't there. He doesn't know. And he certainly doesn't know what happened behind closed doors, like most people.
So you're calling Mr. Knight a liar?
I am saying he wasn't there, and what he testified to doesn't match what I know happened. But I don't fault him. He wasn't there, so how would he know?
He testified he was there, Ms. Turd. Did you hear that?
That's his testimony, yes.
So you're calling him a liar?
I'm just saying he wasn't there.
You heard Mr. Knight testify that the trailer wasn't trashed, and that's why you're calling him a liar.
He testified that a light fixture was broken, similar to the way that
yes,
Johnny's
other than a light
employees
fixture, that was
testified
the
to
only
my
thing that was
closet
broken,
being rearranged
right? Ms. Turd?
and things
Ms.
like
Turd,
that.
The only thing that was broken in the trailer, according to Mr. Knight, was a light fixture. Yes or no?
I realized that he summed it up by saying a light fixture was broken, just the way his security guard summed up him trashing my closet as being rearranged.
Your Honor, I'm going to move to strike everything after he summed it up, that it was a light fixture.
Notice how she cannot keep her composure. Every time that Camille, she asks a question to kind of check what Amber Heard had recently said or testified to, she loses her composure. She talks over Camille, and she feels like she gives off the impression as if she's guilty. This woman is a straight liar, man. I mean, I think anybody can see it at this point in this cross-examination.
Mr. Knight also testified that he charged Mr. Depp only $62 for the damaged light fixture. You heard that, correct?
I did.
In Hicksville, you were the only one that was jealous that Mr. Depp was spending time from other people. Isn't that correct, Ms. Heard?
That is incorrect.
In Hicksville, you were the one who was upset that Mr. Depp wasn't giving you enough attention.
Incorrect again.
Ms. Heard, you told this jury that you had no idea the press was going to be at the courthouse when you got your TRO on May 27th, 2016. Do you remember that testimony?
I said I did not have anything to do with it. Yes.
No. My question again. You told this jury that you had no idea that the press was going to be outside after you got the ex-party TRO on May 27th, 2016. Do you remember that testimony?
I apologize. I must have misunderstood, Ms. Vasquez. I actually had no idea whether they were going to be there or not. When I walked into the courtroom that day, it was completely quiet, still, empty. Even though I had given Johnny's team notice that I was filing the TRO,
Your Honor, this is not
we had no reason to believe the press knew.
And Your Honor, I would also ask that you instruct the witness to please stop talking once I lodge an objection.
This woman will literally say or do anything to escape accountability, man. It's quite sad.
Just if you could just answer the questions asked. Okay, thank you, Ms. Heard.
In fact, you testified that you were, quote, shocked when you saw press when you were leaving the courthouse. Yes?
Yes.
You weren't shocked at all, though, were you?
Incorrect. It was
You knew the press
horrifying.
would be at the courthouse, right, Ms. Heard?
No.
Well, you did bring your publicist to the courthouse with you on May 27th, 2016, didn't you?
I sure did. I'm a public figure. I brought my publicist in case it blew up. In case. And
You
I'm
actually
glad I
had
did.
alerted TMZ that you would be filing a TRO against Mr. Depp that very
No,
day,
I did
didn't
not.
you?
No, I did
The
not.
one day you didn't bother to wear makeup to cover up the mark on your face.
I did not call TMZ or any other news source or paparazzi source. No one.
Well,
I
we
never
heard
did that.
testimony from former TMZ employee Morgan Tremaine yesterday, correct?
Did I hear his testimony?
Yes.
Yes, I was here.
Yes. And
All right, keep listening to this testimony. This is about to get real sick and twisted in this bitch, man. Because, man, this woman, Amber Heard, orchestrated some fake, felonious bullshit allegations against my boy Johnny Depp. Just wait and listen, man. Listen.
you heard Mr. Tremaine's testimony that he knew to dispatch the paparazzi to the courthouse on May 27th, right?
I heard him say that he knew that, yes.
Yeah, and that he dispatched paparazzi to the courthouse to capture a picture of an alleged bruise on the right side of your face. Do you remember him saying that?
I remember him saying that.
That information must have come from your team, right, Ms. Heard?
Absolutely not. Why would I want that? What actual survivor of domestic violence wants that?
Now, the video of Mr. Depp beating up some kitchen cabinets, you admit that you took that video, correct?
Yes, I did.
Right. And you acknowledge that the video was released online the day before you were deposed in connection with your divorce from Mr. Depp in August of 2016, right?
I believe it was, yes.
But you testified that you had absolutely nothing to do with the video's release, right?
Absolutely not.
And you testified that you learned about it when you landed after flying into LA. Do you remember that testimony?
Upon touchdown is when I was alerted to the video's
You
existence
heard Mr.
online.
Tremaine testify about this video as well yesterday, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
And you heard Mr. Tremaine testify that TMZ received the cabinet video the same day you landed at LAX. Yes?
I don't know if I don't know if that's what his testimony was. I'm sorry.
You heard Mr. Tremaine testify that the cabinet video was posted 15 minutes after TMZ received it. Yes?
That's what I heard him say.
And that this could only have been possible if the video was received directly from the source. Yes?
I heard him say that. I don't know if that's true or if that's possible because
And
it
you
didn't come
heard
from me. I was
Mr.
flying.
Tremaine
So
testify.
I know that's incorrect is what I mean to say.
Another liar on the stand.
I just know that that's incorrect.
Right. And you heard Mr. Tremaine testify that TMZ owns the copyright to the cabinet video, right?
That's news to me.
The cabinet video you filmed of your then husband. Yes?
The copyright ownership of that is news to me. I learned that yesterday.
It's the cabinet video that you captured of your then husband. Yes?
That is correct. I did capture that video, and
The
yes,
cabinet
that
video,
was my husband.
The same cabinet video that was released the night before you were deposed in your divorce. Yes?
That's correct.
Okay. You must have also heard Mr. Tremaine testify that the version of the cabinet video that TMZ received was incomplete compared to the video the jury saw in this trial. Did you hear that?
The video that that you have seen is complete.
Right. But the one TMZ got the day before your deposition in the divorce was incomplete.
I don't know. I haven't seen it.
He testified that at the beginning portion of the video where you set up the camera, that wasn't included in the video that TMZ received.
I don't know what video TMZ
I'm talking
received.
about Mr. Tremaine's testimony, Ms. Heard. Let's just
So you're
focus on
asking
Mr.
me to
Tremaine.
repeat his testimony?
No, I'm asking you if you recall hearing him say those words to this jury.
Yes,
Under oath.
I heard his testimony. We all did.
And he testified that the end of the video where you can be seen smirking. I know you testified earlier that you haven't been smirking in this trial, but you sure were caught on camera smirking in that video.
I disagree with that.
Was also not included in the TMZ video.
Everyone can watch that video and you can determine whether you think it's funny to me or not.
That's because the video came from you, right, Ms. Heard?
No, it did not.
You edited
That video
out
did
the
not
portions.
come to me. No, I
Ms.
mean,
Heard,
come from me.
Ms. Heard, you edited out the portions that made you look bad before sending it to TMZ.
You're very wrong about that.
So that
if I
only
wanted to
Mr.
leak
Depp
information, I
looked
could have
bad.
done it in a more effective way, a lot sooner and a lot more.
Because you
I
knew
was
exactly
living
how to
with
do
a
that,
mountain
right?
of this evidence. If I wanted to leak it, I could have done a lot more with it.
I thought you testified earlier in this trial that you didn't know how to leak things.
I
Remember
don't.
that? Right. You edited that video before you gave it to TMZ so that only Mr. Depp would look bad. Yes?
That's absurd.
Right in the middle of your divorce proceedings.
Again, you're very wrong.
Wow, man. What a scandalous, cold-hearted, dirty, trifling bitch who would set her husband up, frame him, and deliberately ruin his reputation in the public eye. Wow, what she did, man. It's no wonder why Western men, especially in the USA, are refusing to marry Western women. Can you trust them? Can you trust Amber Heard? That's the question we need to know.
Thank you. Let's try that again. Good morning. On May 27th, 2016, Ms. Heard walked into a courthouse in Los Angeles, California, to get a no-notice ex-parte restraining order against Mr. Depp, and in doing so, ruined his life by falsely telling the world that she was a survivor of domestic abuse at the hands of Mr. Depp. Today, on May 27th, 2022, exactly 6 years later, we ask you to give Mr. Depp his life back by telling the world that Mr. Depp is not the abuser Ms. Heard said he is, and hold Ms. Heard accountable for her lies. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, as you probably know by now, my name is Camille Vasquez. On behalf of Mr. Depp and all my colleagues at Brown Rednick, I want to thank you deeply for your time and your service over these last 7 weeks. We understand that it probably has not been convenient for you to be here every day, and we are so grateful for your time and careful consideration of the evidence as you deliberate.
Camille Vasquez needs to be recognized as Attorney of the Year. She is such a sweethearted woman. You can tell that she genuinely cares about Johnny Depp, and she is one of those people who really wants to get the truth out there, man. Camille Vasquez, you are a superwoman. Thank you for all you're doing for my boy, Johnny Depp.
After weeks of sitting in this courtroom, listening to testimony and looking at evidence, now it's time for you, the jury, to come to a decision. You have been entrusted with a serious task. What is at stake in this trial is a man's good name. Even more than that, what is at stake at this trial is a man's life. The life that he lost when he was accused of a heinous crime, and the life he could live when he is finally vindicated. Exactly 6 years ago today, on May 27th, 2016, Ms. Heard walked into court and filed a false report of domestic abuse against her husband of 15 months, Johnny Depp. The scene was a setup. She tipped off the paparazzi so they would be waiting. They knew exactly where she would pause, which side of her face to photograph. And the photos captured what she wanted them to see, the image of a battered woman. What the paparazzi did not know is that the dark mark on her face mysteriously appeared 6 days after last seeing Mr. Depp. It was a lie. She knew it, Mr. Depp knew it, and the multiple witnesses you heard from who saw her that week of May 21st, 2016, also knew it. But the world only saw what she wanted them to see. Two years later, when promoting the biggest role of her career until this trial, Ms. Heard presented herself to the world as a public figure representing domestic abuse. The headline of the op-ed featured the term sexual violence, even though she had never before accused her ex-husband of such a heinous crime. Ms. Heard and her lawyers love to remind you of how the op-ed did not mention Mr. Depp by name. But Ms. Heard made sure that there would be no mistake about who she was referring to. She inserted 2 years ago, so the world would remember the photo of a battered woman, the mark on her face standing outside the courthouse, and they would once again see Mr. Depp as the villain, this time in full swing of the Me Too movement. But what was happening behind closed doors was quite different from what Ms. Heard presented to the world. The exact opposite, in fact. There is an abuser in this courtroom, but it is not Mr. Depp. And there is a victim of domestic abuse in this courtroom, but it is not Ms. Heard. The evidence presented at this trial has shown that Ms. Heard is in fact the abuser, and Mr. Depp the abused. As you heard from Mr. Depp and multiple other witnesses that testified under oath at this trial, Mr. Depp experienced persistent verbal, physical, and emotional abuse by Ms. Heard during their relationship. And when their relationship was over, Ms. Heard inflicted the greatest and cruelest injury of all. She publicly and falsely named Mr. Depp as the abuser. Ms. Heard never thought she would be held accountable, never thought that she would have to face her abuser. She never thought she would have her supposed mountain of evidence vetted. She never thought that Mr. Depp would tell you, the jury, and the world that he was the real victim of domestic abuse. She said it in her own words.
This is also a current event, yeah? Because it gives you finance.
It was a fair fight, and see what the jury and judge think. Tell the world, Johnny. Tell them, Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp, man, I'm a victim too of domestic violence, and yes. I know it's a fair fight. And see how many people believe or side with you.
At the start of this case, Mr. Chu and I stood before you to give you our opening statements on behalf of Mr. Depp. During that statement, we made promises to you about what the evidence would ultimately show at the end of this trial. We've kept those promises. One of those promises we made was that you would come to understand who Ms. Heard is, that she is a deeply troubled person, violently afraid of abandonment, desperate for attention and approval. And in her relationship with Mr. Depp, she was violent, she was abusive, and she was cruel. You heard from Dr. Shannon Curry, who explained that Ms. Heard suffers from borderline personality disorder and histrionic personality disorder. These are disorders that are characterized by anger, sometimes uncontrollable and explosive anger, and a powerful, sometimes desperate need for attention, acceptance, and approval. Fear of abandonment is the deepest fear. A person with these disorders will suffer from dramatically fluctuating moods and can sometimes be violent and aggressive. They can also be charming and likable, but they can be incredibly manipulative and wild. An emotional roller coaster with wild swings, from idolizing their partner to devaluing him. In fact, you saw that when she completed testing with her own forensic psychology expert, Dr. Dawn Hughes. Ms. Heard self-reported that she felt like she had 3 or 4 different personalities, and that sometimes her temper would explode and she'd completely lose control. You heard from multiple witnesses that Ms. Heard can be very pleasant, even charming. But you also heard from multiple witnesses and in audio recordings of Ms. Heard that she can be incredibly aggressive, violent, and cruel. You heard that even from her former assistant, Kate James. Ms. James testified that Ms. Heard would scream, yell, and send her barrages of text messages. In fact, Ms. Heard testified that Ms. James testified that Ms. Heard literally spat in her face. You heard from Ms. Heard's former best friend, Rocky Pennington, that Ms. Heard once hit her when Ms. Pennington did not do her best to meet Ms. Heard's needs. You also heard from Beverly Leonard that she once witnessed Ms. Heard assault her then partner in Seattle Airport in 2009. And you heard from Mr. Depp that Ms. Heard used her sister Whitney as a punching bag, literally and figuratively.
Really? What?
The mountain of evidence that Mr. Depp abused Ms. Heard is simply not there. What we have is a mountain of unproven allegations that are wild, over the top, and implausible. And you can't pick and choose which of these wild allegations to believe and which ones to disregard. You either believe all of it or none of it. Either Mr. Depp sexually assaulted Ms. Heard with a bottle in Australia, or Miss Heard got up on that stand in front of all of you and made up that horrific tale of abuse. Either she's a victim of truly horrific abuse, or she is a woman who is willing to say absolutely anything. It is disturbing to think that Ms. Heard would make up the horrific tales of abuse that she testified to in this courtroom. But this case doesn't come down to whether you believe Ms. Heard or you believe Mr. Depp. This case comes down to whether you believe Ms. Heard or you believe Mr. Depp, Christy Dombrowski, Sean Bett, Malcolm Connolly, Travis McGivern, Starling Jenkins, Keenan Wyatt, Dr. Kipper, nurses Debbie Lloyd and Aaron Filati, Tara Roberts, Ben King, Kate James, Kate Moss, Dr. Colber, Morgan Knight, Morgan Tremaine, Officers Melissa Sines, Officers Tyler Haddon, Officer William Gatlin, and Beverly Leonard. What Ms. Heard testified to in this courtroom is the story of far too many women. But the overwhelming evidence and weight of that evidence shows that it's not her story. It's not Ms. Heard's story. It was an act of profound cruelty, not just to Mr. Depp, but to true survivors of domestic abuse. For Ms. Heard to hold herself out as a public figure representing domestic abuse. It was false, it was defamatory, and it caused irreparable harm. And to talk more about that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague and my friend, Mr. Chu.
Camille Vasquez put the nail in a coffin. Either you believe some of it or you believe none of it. All that she has alleged are nothing more than outlandish lies. And I predict that tomorrow morning when I wake up, I'm going to read the headlines in the news that says that Johnny Depp has won his defamatory case and Amber Turd, let me correct that, Amber Turd has lost. Team Johnny Depp, justice for Johnny. Let's see what happens tomorrow. Johnny Depp, I'm with you. We out.